And it looks like we are streaming live on YouTube now. Good.
Great.
Hey, everybody that's with us, the early attendees. If you haven't noticed, we are live streaming. That is San Diego County. We have Cody Patterson, who's going to speak with us a little bit later. For right now, just enjoy the greenery, and then we'll get going soon with the Progressive Caucus Executive Board meeting. Rico, are you able to switch between and Spotlight from where you
are? Switching to Spotlight, I'm not sure.
And see if you can Spotlight me and then go back to the live stream, just in case.
How do I do that? How do I go to Spotlight?
The 3 dots in the top right.
Spotlight video. Okay, we're going to Spotlight Ummer.
Yeah, and then back.
Cody Peterson, 3 dots, Spotlight video.
Yeah, so you have the TikTok there, and if something doesn't pan out on my end, you can just step in.
Okay. How about that finance committee meeting?
It's good stuff.
Moises would like you to know that the original link he sent out for the live stream, something went wrong, so there's a new link for it, which Karen and I just posted in the chat.
Okay, I got fixed.
So everything we published did not pan out?
I'm guessing that's the case. So that old link.
Okay.
I don't believe it's working.
All right, we're 3 minutes away, and do we have Jamal Bowman's representative in the room? Rico, can you please check in with Jamal Bowman's representative? Or David, could you do that? If you're checking in with Jamal Bowman's representative, Rico, could you please put up the new YouTube link on Facebook?
I'm gonna update the YouTube link on our website.
Perfect.
Okay, so we can set everybody there. This is not what I wanted to have happen right now.
No problem. We'll deal with it. David, any luck with the Bowman representative? Okay, David's working on the Bowman representative. David, if you could unmute yourself so you could let us know how that's going when it does.
Yeah, I'm texting him now. I will let you know.
All right, thank you. And then in the meantime, what we'll do in a couple of seconds here when we go live, I will welcome folks, and then we'll go to officer reports. We have all of our officers in. Welcome, everyone. If you're wondering what you're seeing, that is our California delegate from San Diego County out in an area that he's going to be reporting to us about in a little bit later in the program. And we are going to start now. Welcome to the California Democratic Party, everyone. It's the executive board meetings, and I'm going to spotlight myself so you can see me. Well, welcome. There's everybody. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in on time. I promised you that we would start on time. Rico, I'm going to let you start because we have a guest of honor here with us.
All right. Can everybody see me here? So it is my distinct pleasure and honor today to welcome to the Progressive Caucus, the Troublemakers Caucus of the left coast of the United States, Mr. Jamal Bowman. Mr. Bowman is a principal from a public school who grew up in public housing, who will be the newest member of the squad in Washington, D.C. to represent all of our progressive values, not just for New York, but as we know, here on this side as well. It is so important, so important that we not just elect Democrats, but progressive Democrats that will stand up for our values. Now, I know many of our members here already know who Jamal Bowman is. So I want you to give a warm and loud welcome to him. And I don't care if the only person who can hear you cheering and applauding are your neighbors. You do it loud enough so that they can hear you, and you invite them over here to come and listen to our brother Jamal. So I want everybody to give a left coast welcome. Mr. Bowman, please accept our invitation from all of our brothers and sisters with the biggest hug of solidarity that we can right now as we stay safe and from 3,000 miles away. And to all of our brothers and sisters out there, for the next 15 minutes, Mr. Jamal Bowman. The gentleman from New York, you got 15 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Peace and love. Huge shout out to my people out there in California. Shout out West Coast in the building, West Side. Just want to say peace and love to all of you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to connect with progressives all across the country, but especially the beautiful state of California. Thank you so much for your support throughout the campaign. It means a lot. It means the world to me. When I decided to run for office early last year, I did not know that I was going to make tens of thousands of friends from across the country as well as Puerto Rico to support our campaign. And look at what we got done. We got it done here in New York 16, beating a 31-year incumbent, Elliot Engel. They thought he was unbeatable. They thought the machine banking was going to be enough, and it was not enough. They had Hillary Clinton come in the last minute. They had Chuck Schumer come in the last minute. They had Governor Cuomo coming in the last minute. They had all kinds of negative ads going out in mailers every week. They had negative ads on television. None of that stopped the power of the people. None of that stopped the power of the progressive movement. I just want to give you a few numbers real quick. We tripled voter turnout from the last primary. Triple voter turnout in the middle of a pandemic. We beat him both at the polls and we beat him on the mail-in ballots. We tripled turnout amongst people of color, and we tripled turnout amongst young people. We had young people telling their parents they better vote for Jamal Bowman. And it wasn't just because of me. It's because I represent the progressive values that we all represent. We want to end the forever wars. We want to fight for labor, both here and across the country. We need to deal with the climate catastrophe that we are wallowed in right now. We need to deal with it right now and urgently. We fought for Medicare for all. We fought for a Green New Deal. We fought for housing as a human right and fully funding our public schools. And we connected with the people. We met them where they were. We went into the projects. We knocked on doors. Not once, not twice, but 3, 4, 5, 6 times to let them know this was not just about a vote. This was about them being a part of this progressive movement. This was about centering their voices and making sure that our policies aligned with their voices. Because guess what? We know what the polling shows. The polling shows that the majority of American people support progressive values. The polling shows that. And when we spoke to people in the projects, when we spoke to people from low-income communities, they proved that to us once and for all. But this is where we are. We are here. The progressive movement is growing, not just with me winning a congressional seat, but so many people up and down the ballot on the state level, on the city level, on the county level are pushing and fighting for the progressive values that we all agree with and we all aspire to. So I want to briefly talk about something we're going to be introducing to Congress called a Reconstruction Agenda. Reconstruction agenda. The Reconstruction agenda is all about getting it right for the third time, because after the 13th Amendment was passed, we tried Reconstruction the first time. The formerly enslaved were supposed to receive 40 acres. They never received those 40 acres. Instead, those acres were taken away. They were terrorized by white supremacists. And while we spread out west and expanded out west, and the Homestead Act was passed, instead of those acres being given to the formerly enslaved, they were given to white native-born and foreign-born, and they were able to build millions and billions of dollars of wealth over the years, while Black people were kept out of that Reconstruction. The second attempt at Reconstruction happened after the Civil Rights Movement. We passed the Voting Rights Act, we passed the Civil Rights Act, and we were on our way. But unfortunately, Nixon came in, and that created mass incarceration. That led to the mass incarceration of Black and brown people across this country. And as you know, we incarcerate more people per capita than anyone else in the world. This time around, our focus on Reconstruction is targeting police brutality, targeting mass incarceration, and targeting structural racism in all its forms. Excuse me. And where it lives in education, where it lives in environmental justice, where it lives in healthcare, where it lives in economic inequality. The country is uprising in this moment, demanding transformative change, and our Reconstruction agenda is a part of that. It involves truth and reconciliation, similar to Rwanda, similar to Germany, similar to South Africa. It involves reparations, massive investment in communities that have been historically neglected. It involves reallocating resources, not just from our police departments, but from the military industrial complex. We spend way too much money and resources on war. We spend way too much money and resources on our police, and we need massive investments in true public safety and public health, mental health supports, community development, again, education, environment, getting big money out of politics and rescuing our democracy from the wealthy elite. So we'll go into Congress with that Reconstruction agenda, as well as other policy platforms in alignment with what we all believe in. So the fight continues. The fight is strong. We are here. We got it done. Right now, there's no challenger in the general election, and in a deep Democratic district like this, if there were, it wouldn't matter. We would still bring it home, but we can't stop. This is only the beginning, and it's my pleasure to connect with you here from Yonkers, New York. I'm born and raised in New York City, but I'm living in Yonkers right now, connecting all the way to Cali. We're going to build this movement inside out. I look forward to working with all of you, and let's get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. It's such a pleasure to have a fellow progressive brother from the other side here connect with us. You know as well as I do, right? It's not always the Republicans we're fighting. A lot of times it's the establishment within our own state. Tell us, how do you balance raising some good trouble, because we're all troublemakers, and then having to go and make some deals with people later and work together?
Well, first of all, I ain't making no deals. If it doesn't meet the needs of the people in my district, I'm not making any deals. We are the wealthiest nation on earth. We should not have tens of millions of people living in poverty, particularly tens of millions of children. And now that we're dealing with this pandemic, which is the second biggest crisis since the Great Depression, this is the time to implement a Green New Deal. This is the time more than ever to implement a Green New Deal, Medicare for all. We don't have time to make deals. My job is to fight for the people in my district. My job is to bring resources to the people in my district. My job is to raise hell and use the bully pulpit as much as possible to make sure we continue to center those who are most vulnerable. So I'm not interested in making any deals. I'm interested in leading through collaborative leadership structures, through transparency, remaining connected with grassroots organizations, and doing everything I can to use an inside-outside strategy. So this is not about deal making. It's about getting things done for the people who need us the most.
All right. So I think lastly, one more question. You know, we're all fierce fighters over here. Give us a little bit of story of your background and how you go from being just a survivor to a fighter for somebody else, right? Because like our brother Bernie Sanders said, are you willing to fight for someone you don't know? We finally are, but you can't do that until you've learned to fight for yourself. When was that moment for you?
You know, I was blessed to become a public school teacher. You know, it wasn't a plan. You know, it was something that I didn't think about until I graduated college. And when I started teaching and realizing the needs of students who came from historically neglected communities, I just became politicized and became inspired. And I tried my best to not just be an educator, but a mentor and a father figure and a counselor, and just to give them everything that they needed. And after dealing with a public school system that was underfunded, under-resourced consistently, all because we didn't hold the wealthy accountable to paying their fair share into a system, that's when I decided to open up my own school in 2009. And we opened a public district school, not a charter school, because we know that the charter school system is part of a privatization scheme, and I didn't want to be a part of that. We opened up our own public school, and it was a public school of social action. The name of the school is Cornerstone Academy for Social Action. We were the middle school version. And in our school, we were marching for Mike Brown. We were teaching Black, Latino, and Indigenous history all year round. There was no Black History Month. We did it every day in our school. And we also taught creativity and innovation, because the bottom line is our kids have unlimited potential to transform their community and transform the world. So it was my job to create a curriculum along with my teachers that tapped into that unlimited potential. And after doing that for 10 years and realizing I was banging my head against a system that didn't want to move, and honestly, the biggest thing that happened for me is in 2017, 2018, when 34 children died within the K-12 school system in the Bronx and 17 died via suicide. And as an educator, you learn about the connection between trauma and poverty and bad policy. And I wasn't hearing a peep from our elected officials about our kids dying in the street, in the Bronx and New Rochelle and Mount Vernon and Yonkers. And for me, it got to that enough is enough point of view. And that's when I decided to run for office. And as a Black man in America, raised by a single mom, living in the projects, living in rent stabilized apartments, growing up during the crack cocaine era, I just felt like myself and my community was constantly under attack by a system of white supremacy that didn't want to come help and meet our needs. And here I am now, man, pushing back against that system. To win a seat in Congress is tremendous. And I'm just ready to work with you to change the world, man. We got to get it done.
By any means this time around.
So getting it done, brother, we are all in this country and around the world struggling through something different with the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of us are used to pounding the pavement and knocking on doors, and now here we are broadcasting from the woods, broadcasting from our bedrooms and offices, etc. How has it been different for you? How do you hold your head up high to yourself? What do you do to reset, to take time out sometimes? I took a mental vacation out in the woods off the grid this week earlier, and I came back to 768 messages. The human part, how do you keep the humanity in all this? Because the fight never ends, right? From generation to generation even.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never forget how fortunate I am and how lucky I am to have a home, to have a family, to have my kids. Man, I have a 6-year-old daughter. Her name is Maya. She's the center of my universe. That keeps me grounded. That keeps me centered. And always keeping my students and the families that I've worked with throughout my 20-year career at the center of the mission and what I'm trying to accomplish. So I felt powerless many times working in public schools as a principal, because, you know, when my student would come in and tell me how her father was killed over the weekend, or the parent would tell me how they just lost their home, you know, or we had a child self-mutilating and had to be admitted to a mental institution. I felt powerless often in that space because there wasn't really much I could do beyond the walls of the school. Now we're one of 435 in the House, one of 535 overall when you take the House and the Senate. Now we have a platform and the opportunity to introduce policy that transforms the lives of children and those who are most vulnerable. So for me, I'm just driven by the humility of that opportunity that I have personally and with all of you to do the work that needs to be done. So it's just tremendous to have this opportunity. It's like a dream come true. Sometimes it doesn't even feel real, but we're here, man. And I'm driven by that, and driven by, I mean, one of the things we always see, even though our government continues to neglect us and our economic system is oppressive, we constantly see people coming together in mutual aid networks, helping each other in any way that they can. And I'm inspired by that as well. If there are people ready to give their last dollar to support someone to get something to eat, that's what I'm a part of. That's what I'm down with. And that's what I'm going to continue to fight for.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to give you one more minute, brother. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell us how the hundreds of members of our caucus can help support you and in turn help working class people throughout this entire country. It's been a pleasure to introduce you. I hope this is the first of many conversations we have in the years to come.
Well, first of all, you are all already doing great work. So I just want to give you a shout out and big up to the work that you're already doing. So please continue to do that work. What we need more than ever, as you all know, is unity. We need to work with other grassroots organizations across the country and build a formidable coalition that's indestructible. Because we know the status quo and the wealthy elite, they have power, they have money, and they will spend as much as they need to spend in order to maintain that power and control. So it's going to take unity. It can't be organizations working ununited and as a one-off entity. It has to be all of us forming like Voltron, man, and being strong across this country to recruit, train, and support people running for office, not just at the congressional and Senate level, but at the state, city, and county level, and at the school board level as well. But also organizing around, we need volunteers, man. We need phone bankers, text bankers, postcard writers. We need every single person in this country involved in our democracy. So continue to uplift democracy as we've been doing, but we need unity, man. High values, low ego. It doesn't matter who gets the credit. What matters is what this country is going to look like 5, 10, 20 years from now. Even today, look how different the country looks today, man. 2 years ago, 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders did his thing, started speaking truth to power, calling out Wall Street and the BS. 2 years, he didn't win, but 2 years after that, boom, we got AOC in the squad. 2 years after that, we got Jamal Bowman and others. So we're going to keep coming. Look at how different the country is today. Elliot Engel gone, Joe Crowley gone, and we're having different conversations because of your work. So let's keep that up, man, and think about what the country's going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years because of our work.
Thank you so much, presumptive Congressman Jamal Bowman. I appreciate your energy for being with us today. We got a tight schedule, and I know you've got a really tight packed schedule of people from all over the country that are looking to hear from you, and it's just a pleasure to have you here. And you dropped the Voltron analogy. Are you kidding me? That's how we start this joint out, right? So thank you so much. We just
love you all. Love you all. Y'all keep doing what y'all doing. Peace and love, everyone.
All right, take care. So we have hundreds of attendees already joining us here and on YouTube. And if you came late, I'm sorry you missed something special, but we told you we were going to start sharp, and that's exactly what we've done. Thank you everybody for joining us here with the Progressive Caucus, the Troublemaker Caucus. It's at this point, we usually do some call and return, some call and response, and I feed off that energy. But you know what we're going to do? We're just going to keep this joint tight and packed, and we're going to move on to our next speaker, who's Assembly Member McCarty, who is up here representing Sacramento, which is where I am, also just south of his district. And whenever we need a progressive voice in the Sacramento area, we always call on Assembly Member McCarty. He's a former Sacramento City Council member, and he's now the chair of the Assembly Budget Subcommittee on Education Finance. And one of the things that I wanted him to talk about, one of the things I really appreciate about him is, there's a moment now where we're looking at a lot of different legislation to save Black lives, but a few years ago, those things weren't so popular. And it was then that Assemblymember McCarty was out in the media, in the Assembly, doing the hard things, ramping up support for a bill to get an independent investigation from an agency whenever there's law enforcement use of force at a fatality. And we couldn't get it done then, but he's still working on it now. And it's nice to see that, folks are now working with him a lot more. But it's that kind of courage, which we really respect from folks like him that are in the Progressive Caucus at the Assembly. So Assemblymember McCarty, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to make you live.
All right. Thank you for that kind introduction. And the Progressive Dems, I know who you are. I've been a Democratic Party delegate for 20 years, and I so much appreciate your work and what you're fighting for. Certainly makes my life easier as a progressive Democrat lawmaker, as a progressive assembly maker, council member before that. But also, I just want to let you know, sometimes it's hard what you guys push back on us, and it's important because you need to, as the party activist, speak truth to power and hold Democrats accountable. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but I think that it's an important place in our Democratic Party. So I just want to say I appreciate that. So yeah, this is an incredible moment that we're going through in 2020. Of course, COVID-19, we never think we'd be here today, and lawmaking and being an activist on Zoom, when many of us didn't even know what Zoom was 6 months ago, but here we are and the show goes on, the issues go on. And, you know, California, I think, has done a fairly decent job in pushing criminal justice reform, some of these progressive policies, but we haven't nearly done enough. And, you know, frankly, in the last, 2-3 months, we've seen it just open wide up as far as some of the opportunities to push forward this progressive agenda. Like the Congressmember-elect talked about earlier, issues like reparations and a debate on affirmative action. We were able to get pretty much every Democrat to vote for these bills, and we were able to get a couple of Republicans to vote for these issues, which never would have been the issue last year or before. So I think that we need to take advantage of this this moment we have, and really this movement, of course, to quote Alexander Hamilton, and just keep at it, because we've tried so hard to push some of these issues forward and we've been unsuccessful. So for us not to take advantage of it now would be a waste. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Kevin McCarty, representing the 7th District here. I am a proud member of the Progressive Caucus, the Democratic Caucus in the legislature. I'm also a proud member of the Black Caucus. Some of you may look at me and scratch your head. That's okay. Black and brown come in all different shades. And so I'm the proud product of a biracial marriage. My mom was from England and my dad's African-American. So justice and fighting for Black California and Black America has always been at the top of my list. And I decided when I ran for the assembly 6 years ago that if I got elected, this was going to be an important issue for me. And it was the second bill I introduced when I was sworn in 2015, which would have brought about more accountability to police shootings and bring about fairness in the investigation process, which we hadn't seen. But before we get to that, I, like many of you, 20-something years ago, saw the footage of Rodney King when he was beaten on the freeways of Los Angeles, and some individual pulled over as you know, a camera out of his trunk and filmed this, and it was shocking. It was raw. People hadn't seen that before, and so now fast forward to 2020, nearly 30 years later, that we're seeing it with our own two eyes. With the advent of the cell camera on our phones and the dash cameras and the body devices on officers, which we have forced them to have here in California, and with footage from just, on the streets sometimes and shops, we see it with our own two eyes. And so the people of America and California, we've had enough. We've had enough. We've heard about it. We've always known the Black and brown communities were policed very differently, but now we've seen it with our own two eyes, and you're seeing people in all walks of life who are stepping up and saying, we've had enough. I was certainly so proud to see it here in Sacramento after the George Floyd murder. 50,000 people showed up to our city hall and demanded justice for George Floyd, for Stephon Clark, for the incidents that we just can rattle off the list for the next hour, but we know it. And what we don't want anymore is us to tinker around the edges. And so we want to bring about these wholesale changes. And so, I'm pushing forward 3 police reform bills this year. One is I'll talk about the main one in a second, but one is about sheriff accountability. Because as we know, sheriffs too many times say, you know what our accountability is? is the ballot box every 4 years. But no, we have a right to make sure that our sheriffs aren't, being unjust and immoral in their activities. And frankly, has a big cost to us as taxpayers, paying out all these settlements for abuse of force, especially in our county jails. So we have a sheriff here in Sacramento that literally changed the locks on our inspector general, who was providing oversight of the sheriff's department. And it wasn't like this was an ACLU lawyer who was doing it, which I have no problem having that person as the inspector general. It was a decorated police chief or former police chief that had the job. And our sheriff didn't like what they were doing. And so they literally changed the lock on the door so this person couldn't go to work. I know we have people here on the Zoom today from Southern California. We know about the activities and the mess with our sheriff down in Los Angeles County as well. We've had a sheriff oversight body, and that sheriff's been ignoring that as well. So I have a bill on the Senate floor which would provide subpoena power for the sheriff oversight bodies to make sure they can do their job, get information, provide recommendations, and provide real oversight and accountability. And so that bill, I was stuck at 17 votes 2 years ago, last year, excuse me. And then I'm going to take it up next week. I think I'm pretty close, knock on wood, to get my 21st vote to get that passed. So certainly things have changed. I have another bill which I'm working on to make sure that we know, as far as these settlements and these payouts. The city of Los Angeles actually floated a bond and are paying Wall Street investors. It's called a police brutality bond to pay off the judgments for excessive force. It sounds crazy. There's people making money on Wall Street to pay off for the death and the violence and the loss of life that we face in our communities with excessive force. Those, of course, are monies that could go to our communities, our kids, our parks, our neighborhoods. So we need to make sure we're public on that. The last one that I've been fighting for 5 years, and this one I think is kind of embarrassing for California, because we know we're the progressive caucus. When we think of people in America who are governors, think of Scott Walker, the least progressive governor in America, the guy that took on labor unions. He was the worst on these issues. He got ahead of this issue and signed a law that brings about independent investigations for law enforcement shootings in Wisconsin when he was governor. So if Scott Walker can do it, the governor of New York's done it, Illinois has done it, Vermont, Connecticut, all these states have stepped up on this. California is behind. So I've introduced for the third time now the Deadly Force Accountability Act, which would bring independent investigations for deadly force. Because let's face it, police can't police themselves without having a conflict of interest. It's like watching a high school baseball game and having the umpire being one of the players' uncles. No one's going to trust the outcome. And so when police themselves, including the local district attorneys, because local DAs, to get elected, they have to get the endorsements from the sheriff, from the police union. They're super cozy with law enforcement. And then when they go do the investigations, there's a conflict. Maybe not a legal or ethical conflict, but a perceived conflict that can't go away. So many of these states have done this already. California hasn't. I am introducing the bill again. When I introduced it a few years ago, law enforcement pretty much bullied me and said this would be the end of my career with them. I've never got a dime from police unions in my life anyway, so that's fine. I didn't care anyway. I could barely get a vote out of committee. Now I have nearly 50 co-authors for this bill. The one issue that I'm trying to get, which I can ask you to help, is some leadership for our Attorney General. Our Attorney General doesn't necessarily want to take over this activity. It's a shame because we've seen other states do it, and this is something that I think in this moment we should have our Attorney General stepping up and doing this. Just a few weeks ago, there was a horrific shooting in Vallejo, and the DA there has recused herself, asked the AG to take over the investigation because of, again, perceived community conflict of interest with the police policing themselves in Vallejo, and the Attorney General has denied that request. So my bill, what it would do, this would mandate that if a local DA, a local city, local community requests an independent investigation from the Attorney General must take those cases. And I think it's the right thing to do. It's not always, I think, easy work from the AG's perspective. They think that it's always a hot potato, but that's why we put them in this position. I wasn't able to receive the support a few years ago from our then Attorney General Kamala Harris, but to give her credit, when she was phasing out of her job at the AG's office, she put together a proposal that would have created a division in the AG's office to do these independent investigations. So I'm taking her proposal and taking it one step further and implementing it into state law. So we're currently, back and forth with the Attorney General, trying to get them to embrace this. And, they always talk about money over there. But, the Attorney General's office has 4,500 employees, 1,000 lawyers, a $1 billion budget. They do these death penalty appeals on a regular basis. We were getting rid of the death penalty. So they're doing a lot of stuff over there that we could easily phase out and focus on this important task at hand, like making sure if there's an incident of deadly force in California, we have a true transparent process to bring about fairness in the investigation. Will this focus on prosecuting more cops who cross the line? I don't know, maybe. Our law last year with Dr. Weber that I jointly authored with her talks about how the threshold has changed. And so when officers need to use deadly force, officers can only use deadly force when it's absolutely necessary now, not when they think it's reasonable under their eyes. And so we have this new threshold as far as when deadly force can be utilized. And so that it was a positive change. And, we need to bring about, accountability when officers do cross the line. So this is a big piece of my agenda this year, pushing forward. Hopefully this is the year. And again, I know last time we had a few Q&A from the moderators, and so I'll stop here and maybe we can engage a little back and forth.
Well, thank you, Assemblymember McCarty. I wish we had time for a longer discussion, but like I said, our schedule is packed. But one of the things I want folks to recognize is that, we had Attorney General Javier Becerra today on the main stage with the California Democratic Party, and he's not backing this bill yet. So please tweet at him when you see him at events, let him know, send him an email, and then follow Assemblymember McCarty on Twitter and on Facebook and help support his issues so we can get this bill passed, because it's an important one. So Assemblymember McCarty, thank you very much for being with us today. We really appreciate your time, and especially your long-term work on these bills. I know that sometimes you don't get some of the press that the other progressive folks do, but I want people to know that you're in there doing the hard work. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We are going to move right on to a couple of officer reports. We'll have Susie Shannon next. And then after that, we'll be hearing from Cody Pedersen, who's out in the field. You saw, if you joined us a couple minutes early, you saw him actually out in the field. So Susie, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and then let's get you live. Well, if we can't get to Susie right away, let's, Rico, you want to do the next? Oh.
Hello?
Yeah. Is that Susie?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm having a little trouble.
Oh, there you are. There you are. We couldn't see your video before.
Yeah.
When you get started, I'll bring your video up in just a minute.
Okay, great. I just want to thank the Progressive Caucus once more for giving me an opportunity to speak and to represent Southern California region. As many of you may know, I'm working day and night to pass Proposition 21, which is a rent control initiative and reform Costa-Hawkins. What it is really is a homeless prevention initiative and anti-gentrification initiative. And good news, we just passed the resolutions committee, so they will be recommending it for endorsement on a consent calendar on Sunday. So if you can vote on Sunday and are a delegate, I'm just asking you to please support this initiative on Sunday. We desperately need it. There are 151,000 people who are homeless in the state of California, 365,000 who are on the verge of becoming homeless in LA County alone. And as a lot of these eviction moratoriums are released, we're going to see a lot of people who can't pay the back rent and a lot of unlawful detainers and a lot of evictions. And we want to avoid that. We want to give local control. to our city council members and county supervisors. And I hope you will join me in supporting that. And we have a very packed agenda, so I'm just gonna make that pitch and move on. But thank you so much, and thank you to Amr and all the officers of the Progressive Caucus who've been working so ridiculously hard to make this a great Progressive Caucus meeting. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this brief. We heard from the presumptive Congressman-elect Bowman today earlier. They got their turnout over there 3 times in their primary. So what does that mean for communications and social media? In the time of COVID, things are a little bit different now. We are a lot more present on social media as individuals. We're all doing our thing, but we have to make sure that we're reaching out to those people that we would not normally reach out to. So I'm calling on all of us. It's great to talk with all our friends and everybody that's in our little bubble here to get re-energized. But if we cannot go out and knock on doors like we're used to, we have to find another way to do that. If we cannot actually host house parties the way we used to, we have to find another way to do that. So we've brought the caucus website, progressivecaucuscdp.org, up into the 21st century now, so it's a little bit more cleaned up. There's more to go on there, but I want to give a special thanks to one of our members, Alfred Twu, for his illustrations on all of the propositions on the California ballot. So go ahead and you check that out. There's a little bit more information there too on how anybody generally can support the policies of Black Lives Matter. And again, with respect to our packed schedule, I'm going to pass it off to the next person now. Cody.
All right, so we're going to have a Cody Patterson report from San Diego. And one of the reasons we asked him to come in is that, you know, it's horrible not to be able to meet in person and, you know, and hug and shake hands and be in the same space. But what we can do is talk to folks right where they live on the issues that they're working on, right in the spaces they're working on them. So let's hear from Cody, and away he goes.
All right, thank you, Amr. Amr asked me to give an environment heavy San Diego report. And I said, sure, yeah, I'll give that. I'll just, you know, read off my thing. He said, oh, actually, can you go out to the field and do it? So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, yeah, you're. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I'm out here in the field right now. And Amr always forces us to up our game. And I miss all of you. And it's especially, it's an honor to go after Jamal. You know, there's just so few people where, you know, the unicorn comes and it's like the sky, the clouds part. And that's really how, you know, I think Jamal called me maybe 4 months ago, and I got off that phone and I told my wife, this guy's incredible. If this guy actually gets elected, I'll be in shock. I mean, somebody who's so kind-hearted and thoughtful and committed and relentless. So anyhow, it's an honor, and McCarty as well. So I'm here in Marion Bear Park. It's sort of a perfect example of what we in the conservation community fight for. This in the mid 70s, they were going to put a freeway right through the middle of this thing, right through the stream bed, and Marion Bear led the fight against that to put that freeway up higher on the hill. And so now we have, you probably hear a little bit of that freeway right there. But we also have this incredible Marion Bear Park that runs straight through San Clemente Canyon. So the heart of the environmental movement in San Diego still is, the core is still sort of conservation, land use. We're every day fighting. I'm president of San Diego County Democrats for Environmental Action and an executive committee member of the San Diego Sierra Club. And Sierra Club does a lot of litigation, and EnviroDems do a lot of fighting within the party. And we collaborate with dozens of environmental organizations, conservation-minded organizations. We're fighting, you know, projects that won't, everyone out there has their own projects like this in their county or their city. Lilac Hills, we just killed at the ballot box, which is great. We have Harvest Hills, which we used to be Safari Highlands, and we're trying to kill that, and North River Farms, and we're trying to kill that, and Finita Ranch just east of here. So that remains a huge part of the environmental movement in San Diego. But certainly, you know, over the last decade, climate has really risen to the fore, and there's a lot of amazing organizations, Climate Action Campaign, SD350, Sunrise, that have really galvanized, especially youth organizing around climate. We have work on climate action plans and regional transportation plans and community choice energy and joint powers authority. And right now we're fighting tooth and nail I'm fighting for municipalization, and we have a sort of faction of our movement fighting for municipalization instead of we just got out of a 50-year franchise agreement with SDG&E where we have the highest rates in the state by a long shot. And so we're trying to free our city from the grips of SIMPRA and municipalize our power authority. It remains a long shot because, as many of you know, we struggle within the party just in a similar way as we struggle Republican Democrat. So and so that climate has become a major part of the movement in San Diego, and as has environmental justice. Luckily in San Diego, you're really, in terms of the leadership, progressive and environment are kind of, you're very rarely going to see an environmental leader who's not also pretty hardcore progressive. There are some exceptions, but by and large, that's true. And that's great because we're really struggling to put environmental justice at the front. You know, we say a lot, what is not equitable is not sustainable. So we're trying increasingly to lead with that, but it remains a real challenge to center environmental justice in the movement. And we have some great organizations like Environmental Health Coalition, who was, you know, Diane Takborian was really the founder of that and just has been a lion, a lot of work south of the 8. And we see it all the time. We just had this Bonhomme Richard, the USS Bonhomme Richard burnt, and it heavily impacted Logan Heights there, right by the port, Barrio Logan, and then Logan Heights, and then National City. And that impacted communities that are already disproportionately impacted by asthma and port pollution and industrial pollution and lead poisoning. So that is an ongoing struggle, both at the level of focusing on issues and in terms of personnel. It's a really major issue that we're wrestling with. Housing is a huge part of the movement down here. You know, not only on the sprawl side in terms of land use, but in terms of really advocating. A lot of us have been fighting against a sort of market rate approach. Even inclusionary housing for us, you know, 10%, 15% is really not adequate when we're facing half of San Diegans are not having homes that are built or available to them that are affordable. So that's a serious problem. And ultimately, a lot of us in the progressive movement here believe that public housing and heavy public investment is going to be necessary to overcome that. And so I would just say for us here, I know I'm short of time. I'm going to try to make up some time here for the agenda out of respect. But I would say for us, a real big part of being Bernie progressives is taking that national enthusiasm for issues like the Green New Deal and Medicare for All and student loan, getting rid of student loan debt, and actually localizing those values and trying to figure out at the electoral level, how do we talk about those values in ways that are meaningful for constituents, so that the people behind that door, when we talk to them about our issues, we're talking about things that keep them up at night. We're talking about our values in terms that are meaningful to them. That's on the electoral level, and electing people that are sort of hardcore progressives and really offer a really robust vision that can drive turnout, like Jamal talked about, tripling turnout, but also in terms of taking progressive organizers and familiarizing themselves with the issues, getting them to stand before city council, the first few times shaking and their voices cracking, and the third time they're feeling better, the fourth time they know their council, they're really turning themselves into, they're creating a new self, you know, and that's really what's going to be required. So to the extent that this caucus can help in that effort to sort of localize our work, to focus back on the city council, things like this franchise fight, back onto board of supervisors, and focus on land use and criminal justice and getting rid of cash bail and getting meaningful police oversight at the county and city level. And then on the state level, Lord knows I don't have time to talk about the state level. But anyhow, I encourage this is a path that a lot of folks take. What? I encourage this caucus to get more involved, and I love everything you guys are doing. I love that entire board. I love all of you. I wish I was there hugging you with like a hazmat suit. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and onward.
Thank you so much, Cody. I'm going to just keep you on the screen for a little bit. And just, I know I asked a lot of you, and I appreciate it. And all the work you're doing down there in San Diego, not just in the environment, but going the extra mile and connecting folks to the land around you. Thanks so much, brother. I really appreciate it. And now we'll go to Lauren Beer for a officer report.
Hey, I just wanted to say hi to everyone. I hope you're all keeping safe. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. and let you know that the minutes of our previous meeting and the minutes from this meeting will be on the Caucus Facebook page, and we will vote to approve them, and the minutes from any subsequent meetings in the future when we're on in a meeting that allows for non-panel participation. Stay safe, stay well, and I yield my time.
Thank you. You're just going to stay on the screen for a little bit. Kevin Lorenz, are you ready to go?
I am, yeah. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Kevin Lorenz from San Diego. I'm the treasurer for Progressive Caucus. So, I mean, my report is going to be pretty short, at least for the things pertaining to the duties. Basically, in terms of treasury, we have $23,838.01. So we are, so our war chest is well stocked to deal with any reimbursements that the caucus has to deal with for caucus, convention, or e-board costs. We had a lot of members join since the beginning of July. I even lost count of how many members we have. I think it's somewhere over 200, maybe 300 right now, which is awesome. If you know that you renewed your membership over a year ago, please make sure that you are going to renew that on our website through the Progressive Caucus website. You should be able to renew online that way. Also, and then outside of my treasury duties, back most recently in May, I was elected as president of the San Diego Progressive Democratic Club. Basically, the way that the Progressive Caucus is the home to progressive activists across the state. Progressive Democratic Club is the home to progressive activists in San Diego, the second most populated county in the state. And we've been doing a lot of great things, a lot of great endorsements down there, making sure, especially in Dem on Dem fights, making sure that the people of San Diego know like who is the progressive in this fight, and who kind of doesn't need to go up the political ladder, so to speak. And then finally, as you can tell from my background, if there's one candidate I could uplift, it'd be Sarah Davis for Assembly. She's running an AD 78 with Todd Gloria vacating the seat to run for mayor of San Diego. Sarah is the underdog. Sarah is the progressive in this race. She's the pro-rent controlled candidate. She's the pro-affordable housing candidate. Yeah, sure, I can say that she's a YIMBY, but more specifically, she's an affordable housing in my backyard, low-income housing in my backyard, regulation in my backyard, wraparound services in my backyard, public housing in my backyard candidate. That's who she is. She understands that if we do build housing, it needs to be affordable. She believes that just like every bill goes through appropriations, every bill needs to also have an environmental filter to select for its greenhouse carbon emissions, just as we have an appropriations committee for with money. So as I put in the link below, I put a link to her website and a link to her Facebook. She needs donations. She needs phone bankers. We need text bankers. We need people who are going to fill Todd Gloria's seat. In my last 8 seconds here, I know we're not able to change our pronouns on here, at least the attendees are not, but for those of you who would have and further normalized the use of pronouns, I thank you. Thank you all for being great allies. And next time we'll make sure that we can have that up for y'all. Thank you.
All right, David, take it away.
All right, so Northern Vice Chair report. Obviously, we're dealing with COVID, so I can't do what I love to do, driving around Northern State and canvassing for different candidates. So I'm going to use my time to steer you over to my website, davidforcalifornia.com, where you can find information on organizations and candidates and also progressive electeds. So I'm going to read through a short list of people you might have heard of. Elizabeth Betancourt for State Assembly District 1, Audrey Denny for Congressional District 1, Jackie Fielder for State Senate District 7, Pamela Swartz for State Senate District 1, Jim Hansen for Assembly District 3, Gail McLaughlin for Richmond City Council, Javanka Beckles for Alameda Contra Costa County Transit District, Ward 1, Tamika Lecluse for American River Flood Control Board, and Melissa Schwinn Mallory for New Haven School Board. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of all these candidates. I'm sure there's a lot more. I've been trying to get my site updated as much as possible. So obviously, if you know candidates, there is an email at the bottom of every page on there. where you can email me candidates that you are supporting and that you think need to be on my page. Obviously, pro Medicare for all, pro Green New Deal are the requirements, or the basic requirements. But besides that, just check out the website, davidforcalifornia.com, and I yield the rest of my time.
All right, we'll go into Manuel.
All right, everyone. I just want to first and foremost say, well, I'm the Central Vice Chair, so I want to say that. But thanks to the hard work of everybody, I want to announce that Bernie Sanders did win every single county in the Central region in the primary, from Kern to San Joaquin, from Mono to Monterey, ensuring progressive representation for the Central Valley and Central Coast to the National Convention. Unfortunately, the majority of the Central Valley is still a big hotspot for COVID-19. So given the cancellation of the last scheduled e-board, which would have been right in Visalia, the heart of the Central Valley, I think it's important to highlight legislation that's going through the Assembly, including, well, this is now in the Senate, the Assembly Bill 2043, the Agricultural Employee COVID-19 Health and Safety Act, championed by Assemblymember Robert Rivas in District 30 in the Central Coast, as well as Assembly members Garcia, Gonzalez, Calra, and Bonta. And that basically codifies the recent gubernatorial actions, giving expanded access and testing and provision of PPE to farm workers. It creates a safe housing program for sick and at-risk agricultural workers. It increases enforcement of workplace health and safety protocols for agricultural work sites, and it provides a new and robust education outreach program to actually educate farm workers on ways that their families can reduce the risk of COVID-19. We all know that a lot needs to be done, especially in the Central region. There's a lot of dumbasses that don't even want to wear masks. So I think it's important to follow this legislation through and to make sure it gets done to be as safe as possible. That's really all I have. Thank you.
All right, well, in just a little bit, we're going to hear from the chair of the party, Rusty Hicks, and he'll be with us momentarily. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been working on within the party. You know, when I ran for chair and when we had all these caucus officers run for chair, we talked about making sure that we held the leadership of the California Democratic Party accountable. And we've been trying to do that. And I want you to know that, you know, before we even started this term, we ran a motion in front of the officers to remove the former chair, Eric Bowman, as a delegate. Unfortunately, we lost. We had two officers who actually voted to keep him in the party after everything was known about him. Since then, sexual harassment report, which was produced to the party, but then wasn't going to be released. And I worked with the chair of the Women's Caucus, Christine Pelosi, to release a letter calling for a process to begin whereby survivors could work with representatives of the party, go through the report, take testimony. And I'm proud to say that process is now underway. And you have seen the survivors work with the party, and a really good statement coming from the party about how they're going to release the information which we need really to put this behind us, but also to learn from sexual harassment cases and to make ourselves a better party. So, you know, we've seen recently, just today, we had a committee hearing with the Finance Committee where we talked about law enforcement money in the party. And that's something that really wasn't on the radar of the party, to make sure that we make a formal announcement that we are going to eliminate it. But thanks to some of the organizing work in the caucus and our allies, a lot of chairs signed on. The African American Caucus chair was leading the way. And there was a non-binding report recommendation from the Finance Committee, and it was unanimous that the party should no longer take money from law enforcement organizations. That's something we're all really proud to work on. And we're waiting on Rusty Hicks, hopefully this weekend, to take that recommendation and then make a formal statement, even though, you know, he's not soliciting money, even though they're not offering money, to make a statement and provide direction for Democrats across the state that law enforcement money isn't what it used to be. It's actually toxic. And if we want to save Black lives, we can't be taking that money and then electing folks that are an obstacle to saving Black lives. So, you know, hopefully we'll hear from Rusty Hicks a little bit about that. And then also you've seen some organization we've been doing with the delegates from the Bernie campaign that are going to the DNC. And we worked hard to make sure that we got a consensus so that the entire delegation, Biden, Bernie, everybody, we elected a really progressive voices, especially Congressman Ro Khanna. As a co-chair, we had Barbara Lee. As a co-chair, we have Supervisor Hilda Solis as a co-chair, to send voices to the California Democratic Party, to the convention, that are really going to hear the progressive voice that deserves to be heard from California. So we're really proud that that's happening. And then you may have also heard just recently that you know, we put out a statement from the Bernie delegates that we want a progressive vice presidential choice, that if you really want to unify the party, if you want to bring progressives out to vote, if you want to bring people in the cities out to vote, you need a vice presidential candidate that speaks to those populations and energizes them. And we reached a consensus with 90% plus of Bernie delegates in California coming together and saying that we wanted a vice presidential choice that was either former Senator Nina Turner, Representative Karen Bass, or Representative Barbara Lee. And we pushed that out in the narrative, and you've seen the Chronicle and the Nation and Politico and others talking about this voice. So we're going to keep on holding folks accountable. We're going to keep on telling people what progressives want, and we're going to do that inside the party and outside the party. And I hope that you will amplify those voices on Twitter and on Facebook and let folks know, you know, how we feel. And we're going to hopefully hear from our chair, Rusty Hicks, in a little bit. But right now, I'm going to ask Jovanka Beckles, our officer, to give a little update and report on the things that she's working on. I know that she has one announcement in particular that she has to make, and she'll probably want to enlist us in. Jovanka, are you ready to go?
Okay, wait a second. I sure can be.
Okay, I'm going to start your video.
I just came from another meeting, and I can't seem to find my notes, so I'm just going to have to go from the top of my head. But yeah, I just came back from the resolutions committee, and many of us in this caucus, the Progressive Caucus, had came together to create. Our resolution in collaboration with the Black Lives Matter LA. And so that resolution was actually just passed. So I'm happy to share that with you all. You know, it took a lot of heads, I think, you know, to come up with the language, and strong language, because originally when they combined several resolutions together, they ended up watering down some of it, and we wanted to be there to make sure that that language was not watered down, and that it was as powerful as the movement is speaking. And so in this movement for Black lives, no one's talking about reforming police. We're talking about defunding police. And so that's the kind of language that needs to be in, I believe, everything moving forward in this party. So that's the one news. And then the second news, as you can see behind me, I'm going to be running for AC Transit. That's for those who don't know, it's the Alameda Contra Costa Transit System, because it's time for us to combine our powers and make this one movement. And in this movement to not just hold police accountable, but defund police, so that we can have more and reinvest in the community and reimagining what policing actually looks like. We can actually have the kinds of programs that uplift us all in Black and Brown communities. So yeah, running for transportation justice, transportation for the people. And any of you want to support the campaign in any way, please, you can visit Jovanka for actransit.com. So I believe that is all. That's all the report that I have.
All right, thank you so much, Jovanka. And now we're going to go live in just a moment to the North State, to Humboldt County and Hélène Rouvier, who's just one of the amazing activists out there. But I wanted to say that, you know, we had to pack a lot of stuff in today, and I appreciate Zach Denny and Emma, who are officers who have given up some of their time so that we can get all of this done. So now I'm going to unmute Hélène Rouvier, and we'll go live to her in North State. While we're waiting for Hélène Rouvier, you can take a look at this amazing scenery.
Where is the scene? Richmond?
It's in Humboldt County, right on the causeway there. Okay. Looks like we're having a problem getting our audio, but I'm loving this video.
You're unmuted.
There we go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Len.
Hi,
And introduce yourself and let folks know exactly where you are in Humboldt County.
I will. I'm Hélène Rouvier. I'm here with my friend David Frank, who's a community radio talk show host, and Jen Cald, who's Humboldt Baykeeper. And so where we are, let me turn this off. You want me to hold that so I can... Having a few technical difficulties. Okay, so right now we're at the north end of a 6-mile stretch of Highway 101 between Arcata and Eureka. You can see on the far side, and I'll let Dave take a picture there, of are the pasture lands that are subsiding. They're actually lower than sea level. And directly behind us is Humboldt Bay. So 150 years ago, this was all salt mill. Dikes and drainage made it possible to build a highway and railroad along the bay. The rail right-of-way is now being repurposed for this trail in front of us. Elsewhere along the bay, low-lying areas were diked and built up with residential and industrial, 2 sewage treatment plants, and a nuclear power plant. This section is known as the safety corridor or blood alley. The posted speed limit's 50 miles an hour due to the many accidents and fatalities from cross traffic. So addressing the safety concerns has been a priority for Caltrans for over 15 years. So construction on this $56 million project just began. You can see those at grade intersections and repair some bridges, culverts, tide gates, and railings. Humboldt County Association of Governments contributed $31 million to it, and it's scheduled to be completed in 2026. So what could possibly go wrong? First, king tides combined with storm events regularly breach the dikes here. Then they flood and close the highway. There's an even bigger elephant in this room. Predictive models of sea level rise show this stretch may well be underwater by 2030. In fact, a study by the Center for Climate Integrity projected that Humboldt County will have to build 142 miles of seawall at a cost of $2.5 billion by 2040 to protect our coastal communities from sea level rise. So wouldn't a raised causeway make more sense? But when questioned, Caltrans replied that a causeway would be a, quote, sea level rise project, where this is a, quote, safety project. So now I'd like to turn this over to Jen Cald, who's the Humboldt Baykeeper, to talk about the process with the Coastal Commission.
Here's your phone back. Hi, everybody. Ooh.
Turn that phone off. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Calt with Humboldt Baykeeper, and we have been working on the sea level rise issues and the Caltrans 101 corridor project issues for many, many years now. Humboldt Bay is really unique in California in that we have twice the rate of sea level rise as the rest of the state. And that's because the ground beneath Humboldt Bay is subsiding due to tectonic activity at the same rate as sea levels rising. So the relative sea level rise rate is double what it is in the rest of the state. And yet Caltrans has been marching down this path to build a highway interchange just south of here for 15 years. And, you know, since then, the governor signed a declaration that all public funds have to consider sea level rise, but they say, well, we started this planning long before that, so we're just going to keep plowing ahead. Fortunately, this is in the coastal zone, and so we have the California Coastal Commission to oversee Caltrans, which has been really has had a fantastic outcome, largely due to community activism by lots and lots of people. Back in 2013, the Coastal Commission had a pre-permitting hearing on this project, and the result of that hearing was the Coastal Commission instructed Caltrans, you have to build the trail, which is part of the California Coastal Trail, the Bay Trail that people have been fighting for here for over 20 years. And they have to remove the billboards along the stretch of 101, which is all, the billboards were all in public trust wetlands. And we've been fighting, people here have been fighting over the billboards in the National Wildlife Refuge, which we're standing in here for 40 years probably. So 19 billboards have been removed since 2013, largely as a result of the Coastal Commission's decision and community advocacy. And then most of the Bay Trail has been built. And also, really importantly, Caltrans has been given a directive by the Coastal Commission to come up with a plan for sea level rise for this stretch of highway by 2025. And that's really important because, as Lorenz said, this roadway here is probably going to be flooded sooner than 2030. It has been flooded in the past. In 2006, there was a major storm event during a king tide that half the freeway was closed here, just south of here, with floodwaters. And so what's really important about that is the only thing that's protecting the highway is this dike. As Lorenz said, it's an unengineered, unmaintained earthen dike that was built over 100 years ago when sea level was 18 inches lower than it is today. So we have all these different agencies, different forces that are kind of pointing the finger and saying, you fix it, no, you fix it. But really, Caltrans has the huge asset here. And so building a causeway or an elevated viaduct would be the most desirable thing, but Caltrans says they can't do that because they don't have the money. How am I for time, do you think?
I think we're, Amar, are we about out of time?
Yeah, just wrap up, and then we're going to go on to Chair Rusty Hicks.
I think we're probably at 5 minutes. I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, we're gonna move on. I want to thank you for being there. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, but we're gonna move the video along. Thank you so much for being out there.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. So thank you all for bearing with us with a little bit of audio. You know, one of the things that David Hildebrand was mentioning in the chat, rural broadband, right? That we need internet connection everywhere. But hopefully you saw, you know, a bit of what we're talking about in that folks are working in their communities on issues that matter, from the North State and Humboldt down to San Diego when we heard from Cody Pedersen. And, you know, for our next meeting, if we have the misfortune to be here again virtually, please let us know about issues you're working on in your community, environmental or otherwise. If there's some place that you want to broadcast from, let's try to make that happen so that folks can really get a better feeling for, you know, what's going on out there in the field. So now we have our chair, Rusty Hicks, who's with us, and I'm going to put the video to him. And one thing I wanted to say, though, is at our last meeting, Chair Hicks was kind enough to be with us. And we were also waiting for Senator Bernie Sanders and others. And they, as Chair Hicks was walking to the mic, I didn't see him because I was looking past him to others, Senator Sanders and others. So I want to apologize now for that horrible introduction that I gave you last time. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. I know that being chair of the California Democratic Party is no easy feat, and I give you a hard time, and we push progressive issues, and we're doing it this morning in the Finance Committee. And what I do know is that you always respond, you always let me know what you're feeling and what you're doing, and that doesn't always happen with others. So I do appreciate that, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I know you've got a packed agenda, so I will keep my comments short and sweet. More than anything, I just wanted to swing by virtually and say thank you for the work that you're doing to help to strengthen our party, not only through the Progressive Caucus, but also in your own communities. I think as evidenced by the local work that you are highlighting as part of your agenda. Certainly over the next 101 days, I believe that our number one priority should be making sure that we win these important elections, not just to get a change in the White House, not just to take the Senate back, not just to keep the House, but be able to win top to bottom, obviously on candidates and causes that are so incredibly important to so many. But at the same time, we've got to continue other important work within the party. And I wanted to give you just a quick update on a couple of those. First is, I know there's been much attention around the working group on sexual and racial misconduct and harassment. And I want you to know that I'm proud that we have our independent ombudsperson, Pat Shue, our executive director, Yvette Martinez, a trauma expert, Luis Gabold, and two survivors, John Vigna and Kate Early, that are leading that working group. They'll be taking survivor input. They'll be assessing the current code of conduct that we have in place today, and then providing recommendations. Our hope is they're meeting every 2 weeks. My hope is that they have a full series of recommendations that can be presented to the executive board in our November executive board meeting. Now, whether that's in person or whether that's virtual, we will see. But obviously, it's an opportunity to build upon the robust system that we've put in place over the past year. And then the second is the broader work around truly moving to be an anti-racist organization. I think it's fair to say that our party has done some work in this space, in candidates and causes that we've supported, but we should do more. We can do more, and I believe that we will do more. I think as we embark upon this work, it has to be with long-term, systematic, institutional, and individual change being a central part of what we're collectively trying to do. And so in the coming weeks and months, my hope is that we can embark on a much longer journey than any one piece of legislation or any one candidate or initiative that we would support. I think many will tell you, experts will tell you, that that's where the greatest change comes from, is from a commitment to the longer term work. So I look forward to working with all of you, not only on our candidate and initiative campaigns that we're all going to be a part of, but also the work to do the internal party work to build a stronger, more inclusive party. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to keep you on video for just a moment. It's our tradition to always ask questions of people, the chair and others come in, and we have one question. What is your plan to minimize legislator interference in ADEMS and Central Committee races?
Well, I would say with regards to the ADEMS process, which is a process that the party is obviously directly connected to, I'm really proud of the ad hoc committee that we put in place at the last quarter of 2019, and then worked into the first quarter of 2020, held more than 20 plus meetings, helping to reform the ADEMS process. to really level the playing field between anybody and everybody that wanted to participate in that process. Everything from ensuring that we eliminated ineligible voters, which I know was a major concern in prior elections. The idea of slates, the idea that you directly elect an executive board member. At this point, it will go to the highest vote getting member. If you get the highest number of votes, you're the e-board member for that particular assembly district. Sought to restrict campaigning from the voting room, which is obviously a big challenge previously. Our goal is to try to ensure that there's maximum participation in the process. I've always said I thought the ADEMS process was a major organizing opportunity for our party. And we should build it such that we bring in 100,000 people. You know, it's great that we have 40, 50,000 people participating in that process. We've got the opportunity to have 100,000 or 200,000. That's how we should build the system. Obviously, we may have to do that in a virtual space now, but I believe I'm really proud of the work of the ad hoc committee that has submitted those changes for recommendation to the Rules Committee. I believe that'll be before the body for consideration tomorrow. So I think it's going to strengthen our process. It's going to level the playing field to ensure that everybody has free and fair access to the not only ADEMS process. The county committee process obviously is a little bit, has a broader reach in many ways, but we've got the opportunity to have some direct impact on the ADEMS process. So thanks so much for the question.
All right, thank you, Chair Hicks, for being with us today and answering your question. We look forward to hearing from you more about law enforcement money in the party. And hopefully by the end of the weekend, maybe you can hear the recommendation from the Finance Committee this morning and let us know where the party's going to go in the future on that issue, so that Democrats around the state can have some solace that the party's got their back when it comes to taking law enforcement money. And now I am going to hand off to Emma to introduce our next speaker, Assemblymember Santiago.
Hi, I am the Parliamentarian Progressive Caucus. But right now, I'm here to introduce Miguel Santiago. Miguel is the 3-term Assembly member from Assembly District 53, representing downtown LA and East Los Angeles. In 2019, the California State Legislature passed Assembly Bill 857, which was co-authored by Assembly members Santiago and David Chu of San Francisco, making California the first state in the nation to allow cities and counties to divest from Wall Street and establish their own public banks. Now, in the wake of COVID-19, Assembly members Santiago and Chu are back with another Assembly Bill, number 310, which would move California another step closer to an equitable economy for all Californians and another step away from the extortive stranglehold of the too big to fail banking industry and Wall Street. Please join me in welcoming Assemblymember Miguel Santiago.
Hey, how are you? Sorry, I was looking at my little daughter over here. But thank you very much for having me here on today, Emma and Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'm very grateful for giving the opportunity to participate today. And I want to say about AB 857, the bill that we previously had passed to allow local municipal banks to exist in the state of California. Look, let me be honest with you, it would not have gotten done without Democratic grassroots support and the type of leadership that you folks provided, because it took an uphill battle, which many thought we could not win, but we were extremely successful in getting the first public banks in the state of California. I mean, this was historic, and I couldn't have done it without you folks supporting us, and that's the bottom line. So here's what we did, and I don't think it's a surprise to you or a surprise to other that big banks failed our communities even worse during COVID. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, it's not rocket science to figure out that big banks bailed out big corporations, and on top of it, the fees that we paid in the state of California, the big banks, look, I'll say it, it's wasted money that we could be using for a public good. So when we came back, we decided, hey, let's focus on a state bank. Now than ever, I think we have the best case under COVID, and we saw the CARES Act, didn't go to where we thought it would. We wanted small businesses to work in our communities. We wanted loans to people. We wanted things that would actually improve our communities, and we didn't get that. So we took a look and said, hey, let's look at the iBank, which the state now has. Let's make it a state bank. And then on top of it, most folks didn't know, but we have about $100 million that sit inside a PMIA account. That's either local municipalities who are leaving their dollars there, state departments leave their dollars there, or monies are being transferred. But there's about $100 million there any given day that's sitting idle. So we came up with the concept. And the concept was, let's take 10% of these dollars, let's put them into the state California bank that we want to create, and let's actually use these dollars for a public good and loan the local municipalities during this tough economic time, or loan to small businesses, or use them for some other purpose that actually improves our local neighborhoods. So it's not a radical idea, really. It's kind of a common sense idea. And look, I'll say this, there's a lot of people who I should thank, and I started off by thanking you folks who raised your voice and really allowed us to move forward with this the first time. But the Public Banks Coalition also helped us out quite a bit. We had big voices like Our Revolution who stood up with us the first time. We had folks like Bernie Sanders who raised their voice, AOC who helped us out quite a bit. So there's a lot of good people who really made this happen. And we're going to need your help again to making this one of the most important priorities that we have this year. It's not easy under COVID. I will be honest with you. The legislature, as you've read, has not come back to session. And so it's made it very difficult to get a bill through. It's made it very difficult to have those conversations. And it's made it very difficult to have the tools that we had in use like we did last year, meaning grassroots activism, meaning people inside of people's offices talking, meaning knocking on people's doors, meaning legislators advocating in front of them, having those meetings that we normally had. So this is really a very difficult time, but we're going to need and ask you folks if you would really help us so that we can get this done, because it is absolutely important. Look, the Bank of North Dakota existed for longer than most big banks has, and during the worst of economic depressions, it's continued to stay afloat and it's continued to do a public good. So at the end of the day, we're going to ask our colleagues to help us to set up a state public bank. It's a common sense idea, and I want to thank you for having us on. So we're going to need a lot of grassroots activism to get this done in such a short period of time. I'll also, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, maybe plug two quick things in there, if you'd be so kind to allow me.
Yeah, you got a couple minutes. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. And the other thing I want to really plug in is taxing those who are doing very well, because I think the wealthy have done extremely well. Recently, as you know, we now know there's about 154 billionaires in the state of California, and less than 1%. It's not even 1%. Less than 1% of Californians earn over $1 million, and they're doing it in many cases much better than they were before, while the rest of California hurts. And while we've had a $54 billion deficit, we have people who are hurting. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, people are hurting. Unemployment rates at an all-time high. We need for those who have a lot of money to pay their fair share. And next week, I'll be reaching out to you folks because we'll be proposing a millionaire's tax in the state of California. And we're going to need all the help we can. We've built now a pretty large coalition that will be supporting our efforts. And we hope to have you folks joining us, because this is going to be a really tough fight. But during the worst of economic times, somebody wrote in there, George Bezos, as I looked up, I'm not the best technologically advanced person, but they popped up. Absolutely. He's made a lot more money during this pandemic and doesn't pay anywhere near the taxes that low income communities of color pay. There's no way. And so it's going to be a tough fight that I'd like to engage you folks in. If you're open to it, Mr. Chair, I'd like to come back. And then lastly, I want to also ask that you consider supporting, as many of you already did, the repeal of Prop 209. That was a bill that myself, Weber, and others pushed through the legislature. It's now Proposition 16 and would allow the opportunity for all finally in the state of California. Women still make 80% on the dollar as their male white counterpart. If you're a woman of color or a single mother, you make 60 cents on the dollar. And we know that communities of color have been locked out systematically out of university opportunities. We've also seen when it comes to state employment and public contracting, the inability where wealth has been left on the table. And we know that this is going to be a very, very tough fight because those who have power and those who have money are not going to let it go. And I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with me, later on down the line, and maybe ask the engagement of this caucus to help us pass Prop 16. I know the party's going to be taking a position on it, hoping you would consider supporting it. But this is going to radically change the way California conducts its business and finally give us an opportunity. I'll remind you, folks of a younger generation, and I found myself in the legislature having to remind younger folks who were in the legislature that 25 years ago when Pete Wilson was in office and you had Republicans across the state who were right wingers, they attacked they attacked immigrants with Prop 187 and they attacked all communities of color with Prop 209. They attacked our language with 227 and attacked collective bargaining rights with 226. And we've just about pushed all those things back and establishing affirmative action and giving opportunity for all is one of those last pillars that we have left that we need to knock down. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm humbled to be talking to this caucus. I really appreciate the opportunity to do so and would look forward to continuing to work on progressive issues with you folks in the next coming months and next legislative year. Thank you very much. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Assemblymember Santiago. One of the things that we love is having Assembly members come in, especially when they're leading the effort on bills that we're behind in. Whether it's public banking or talking about a millionaire's tax, those are the issues that our folks want to get in the weeds on. So we will definitely be reaching out to you.
Can I correct you on one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not leading, I'm working with you guys. These are ideas you guys have been. So it would be false to say I'm leading. I think you guys led and we're working with you. So let me correct that.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. We'll definitely work together and we'll have some folks reach out to you. And I think what we found from working and organizing today is that we just have a schedule that's so jam-packed. There's so many issues. We need to have more meetings and our folks want to get in on the weeds, and we'll have you back another time. So thank you for being here today. Next on our agenda is Susie Shannon, who's going to lead a housing panel. And we're just going to get her live. And, I'm really happy that we have the housing panel here because it's one of the issues which just doesn't get enough attention. And it's one of the most crucial issues for progressives to address themselves with. There's so many other interconnected things with housing, whether it's safety, whether it's healthcare, and if for whatever reason it gets not enough attention. And I'm really pleased that we have one of the state's leading experts in Susie Shannon, that's our own caucus officer, that can lead this discussion for the next little bit.
Great, thank you so much, Amr. So I just again want to thank the Progressive Caucus for giving us an opportunity to talk about these issues. I actually am formerly homeless and I work with homeless and low-income communities, and this is really my life's work to work on these issues. I'm also the drafter of SB 1380, which was legislation that was passed and signed by the governor to create a housing first model for the state of California. And what that basically means is that we want our homeless community to come indoors as quickly as possible without having to jump through hoops or encounter barriers. And it also saves a lot of money, interestingly enough. This is how we got Jerry Brown to sign that legislation, was to show that it saves $35,000 to $45,000 per person that's homeless annually. So that's actually over $1 billion right now in terms of our chronically homeless population. and it will be a lot more. So what we're looking at now is we have 151,000 people who are homeless in the state of California. We have over 120,000 units, and that means, you know, whole families in those units of people who are likely to become homeless by the end of the year or early next year if we do not take immediate action. COVID-19, as many of you know, has left millions of people homeless, or not homeless, I'm sorry, without jobs. And even though we've enacted a lot of these moratoriums, renter moratoriums, what's happened actually is that in a lot of cities and a lot of counties, as soon as that moratorium is lifted, a lot of folks will have back rent due and they won't be able to pay it. And this is going to be a huge problem in our state, and we are likely to see a lot more folks who are going to be homeless. I am working actually as a policy director for the Proposition 21 campaign. I mentioned this earlier when I spoke for the SoCal Vice Chair position. So what this does actually is allow local government to enact or extend rent control and to provide rental assistance. So to give you an idea, the city of Los Angeles passed renter relief, basically freezing rent raises for anyone who is impacted by COVID-19. And they were sued by one of our housing associations here because they said that this violated the Costa-Hawkins law, which was passed in 1995. And that actually is what is preventing our city council members and county supervisors from enacting or expending rent control and providing these types of tenant rights. So we are hoping that this passes in November. And if you, again, are a voting member tomorrow, we would appreciate your vote tomorrow. The good news is that our resolutions committee voted 25-0 to support the initiative, and we're hoping that it will pass tomorrow, which will be a huge victory and definitely express our democratic values and our progressive values for this community. So I'm going to bring on two experts in housing. Our first is Larry Gross. You may know Larry because he's a regional director for Region 12 for the California Democratic Party. I recruited him for this position because I really wanted more renter advocates and housing advocates in the Democratic Party. And Larry is also the executive director of Coalition for Economic Survival. And he actually, that organization was responsible for creating the City of West Hollywood, which was created over renters' rights issues. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Larry so that he can sort of explain from the tenant perspective what's going on. Larry?
Yes, Susie, you got me into this mess. So I've been doing this for,
I take full credit.
Yes. I've been doing this for over 4 decades now, and the challenges keep getting greater. So we're not facing a housing crisis. We face an affordable housing catastrophe, a housing calamity, literally a shelterless apocalypse. Prior to the Trump virus, most California tenants faced unaffordable rents, paying upwards of over 50% of their income to rent. Overcrowded conditions here rank the worst in the nation. California's poverty rates rank at the top in the US, and we have the designation of the homeless capital of the nation. We've had wages drop or disappear as rents skyrocket. And the Trump virus has made the situation so much worse, especially for low-income communities of color who have already been subject to the greatest economic onslaught. LA is now at 21% in its unemployment rate, with 2/3 households experiencing significant earning declines over the past 4 months, and Latino and African-American households are being hit the hardest. Now, as Susie mentioned, the state and cities have thankfully taken action to halt evictions for those who can't pay due to COVID. The Judicial Council instructed courts not to issue eviction summons until 90 days after the emergency ends, but we just learned that they may reverse this decision, creating a likely eviction avalanche. This when tenants are accumulating massive debt that they will never, ever be able to pay back. UCLA did a study, showed without federal resources or effective state or local action, we're going to see 365,000 LA households evicted. And as we brace for the eviction tidal wave, as the federal eviction protections have just expired, it's threatening 12.3 million tenants living in federally financed rental units. We are literally on the track to an economic train wreck. And that's why we need action to forgive rent and mortgage payments. The state legislature must pass AB 1436, which removes the eviction threat for renters while allowing landlords to recover unpaid rents. We need the courts to back off of reissuing eviction summons. Unfortunately, our state elected officials, including too many Democrats, have failed to adequately address our housing disaster. They've been focused on increasing density and streamlining land use processes to benefit developers in building luxury housing with little to no affordable housing. We need more housing, but it must be affordable. And we need to preserve our existing affordable housing stock. Too many party leaders have embraced trickle-down Reaganomics, a failed theory in which the poorest is supposed to benefit as a result of the increasing wealth of the richest. While benefits continue to increase for the rich, the only thing trickling down to the poor is more hardship, more grief, less income, and little to no affordable housing. And that's why we need a strong and effective progressive caucus to keep our elected officials accountable and, more importantly, elect more progressive people. Now, you remember the Costa-Hawkins Housing Act is a Democrat, and it was a majority Democratic state legislature that passed Costa-Hawkins, handcuffing local governments from enacting stronger, more meaningful rent control laws. We do need a progressive Democratic Party now more than ever. And one way we can go down that progressive road is to vote to endorse Proposition 21, the rental affordable housing tomorrow. Then we're going to need to beat back the landlords who are going to put up big money campaigns of lies and deceit to ensure that Prop 21 passes in November. Also in November, we need to, so don't forget that. So change doesn't come without hard work and constant struggle. I know you all know that. We must continue that commitment, and that's the way justice will prevail. I thank you. It's been an honor to speak to you as a proud Progressive Caucus member. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larry. Next up, we have Renee Moya. Renee used to work with ACE, which a lot of you probably are familiar with in terms of an organization that works very closely with tenants. He now is with the Housing is Human Right Campaign, Healthy Housing Foundation, and he is the campaign manager for the Prop 21 campaign. And it is so amazing working with him. And I just want to bring you up to say a few words. Renee?
Susie, thank you so much for inviting me onto this panel. And first, but actually want to thank you, Susie, because you've done such amazing work over the last few months to ensure that we were able to get the Resolutions Committee to take the first step in having them endorse Proposition 21. So I want to thank you first and foremost. I want to thank everyone here, though, for recognizing that housing is a human right. You know, I think something that was said at the very beginning of this panel kind of struck me as important because I think it's something that is ignored often, which is that housing, sadly, housing, displacement, gentrification are issues that frankly have never been considered sexy issues when it comes to politics, both at the statewide level, but certainly at the federal level. It was something that actually disappointed me a little bit, actually, during the primaries, that not enough questions were asked of our presidential candidates on the question of housing. given the fact that globally this is becoming issue number one for a lot of our communities, right? Again, as Susie said, I'm the campaign director for Prop 21, but I'm also, even now, a tenant organizer who works with tenants suffering the sharp edge of the wedge when it comes to issues of displacement here in Northeast LA, where I grew up. I myself have also been homeless about twice now in my adult life. And so, these issues are very personal for me. And what exactly, though, is this challenge that Prop 21 is meant to address? We need to be very clear, as Larry said and as Susie said, that a lot of poor and working class people in California were already suffering a housing crisis prior to COVID-19. We should be very clear. A housing crisis existed before COVID-19. The housing crisis is getting infinitely worse now as a result of it. We have heard, again, multiple times that about 365,000 renter households face displacement as a result of the recession, really the depression that we are facing in the state of California. What is less highlighted, I think, is that the Aspen Institute has said that something close to 4 million renters in California are likely to face eviction over the coming few months. That's an absurd number of people who are facing that challenge at the moment. And so the scale of the housing crisis today is far worse than we've ever faced it. And so we need to address this head on. Now, why Prop 21? I was one of these people who, when I was working with ACE 2 years ago, we fought hard on Proposition 10. We needed Proposition 10 at the time. We needed to repeal Costa-Hawkins at the time. We needed to repeal Costa-Hawkins, frankly, the day that it passed. It never should have been passed in 1995 when it became law, but unfortunately it did. And what we have seen, ironically, in the wake of the passage of the Costa-Hawkins Act is a number of things. One, we actually saw a cratering in the development of new housing, which was what we were promised would happen if we, suddenly eviscerated tenant protections, that there would be a flowering of new construction and that would make the housing situation in the state of California better. The exact opposite is what actually happened. And what we've seen is that, especially in the last 5 years, skyrocketing numbers of folks who have ended up homeless. For about 5 of the last 6 years, our homeless count in the state of California has been increasing. In LA County alone, in the last year, we have seen a double-digit increase in homelessness. And if you read what the LA County LAHSA, the agency that deals with homelessness here in LA, says, their own reports show 2 things are happening at the exact same time. One, we are housing more people more than we have ever before. We're actually doing some of the stuff that we're supposed to do and rehousing people who end up on the streets. At the same time, though, so many people are in economic distress. And again, this is before COVID-19. So many people are in economic distress that the number of people who are becoming unhoused is far too much for the system to be able to bear. It doesn't matter that we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in trying to do this when ultimately we have created a revolving door of homelessness, or that leads to homelessness. And for too long, we allowed people to believe the myth that the reason why people were homeless was because of some personal failing in themselves, as opposed to a broader sort of systemic issue. We allowed people to ignore the fact that the vast majority of people end up on the streets actually because of economic issues and not because of, for example, drug addiction or alcoholism, right? And so for us, it was very important. It has been very important to let people know that the quest for rent control, on broadly speaking, but really the issue of tenant protections ultimately is a fight to keep people in their homes. And that is what Prop 21 is meant to do. We will never solve this housing crisis just by building housing, although we should do that too. I was very, very disappointed, for example, that in this last year, we did not get FCA 1, the repeal of Article 34, passing out of the legislature this year. We should have been able to repeal Article 34 and allow for the expansion of public housing in California. It was a deeply racist law that was passed by the realtors 50 or 60 years ago. We should have done that at the time. And so we still have the challenge, right, of building the right kind of housing for the people in the state who are hurting most. But right now, we need to stop the bleeding. We need to stop people from becoming homeless to begin with. If we can't do that, we are never going to solve the housing crisis in California. Again, thank you everyone for hearing us today. I'd be very happy to take some questions if you folks have them. Thank you. And thank you again, Susie.
Thanks. Okay, so I just want to, some people asked like what the action items are that can be taken. First of all, if you have a local rent control ordinance that's coming up, please support it if it expands renters' rights. Do everything that you can to help get Prop 21 passed. You can volunteer, tell your friends, tell your family. This is the single most important thing that we can do right now to prevent homelessness. So I think that's very important. I do want to let you know too that I founded the Dnc Poverty Council. What's wonderful about that actually is that we were able to put some language into the draft platform, which basically says no one should pay more than 30% of their income on rent, and no one should, and it also promotes and adopts a housing first model for a homeless community. So it's actually very good. The one piece of language that we didn't get in there is to recognize housing as a human right. All the other pieces are in there. So we did put in for an amendment to add that. So hopefully that will be in there. But you know, there is like a whole movement within the Democratic Party supporting renters' rights and our homeless community. So anything that you can do to foster that awareness. You know, we're all progressive. We all care very much about climate change and the Green New Deal and Medicare for all. And you won't find a bigger advocate of Medicare for all than right here with me. But we also need to add to that, like first tier of the things that we talk about and are concerned about could be homelessness and housing. And unfortunately, things are going to get probably fairly bad in California before we are addressing these issues. So I just want to thank you. And then if there are any questions, I don't know if we have time for questions actually.
No, we don't. We got to move on.
We do?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
All right.
Thank you
so
everyone.
much.
And you can put questions in the chat and we'll try to answer it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for the housing panel. It's now my pleasure to introduce Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. And I'm not going to do the traditional sort of introduction, but what I want to tell you folks about is that, you know, the gig economy billionaires got rich by stealing wages. And then they lost in the Supreme Court in a case called Dynamax. And then they tried to, you know, fight AB 5, which was a confirmation of that case to stop wage theft. And if you're watching stuff at that time, you know that Assemblywoman Gonzalez was a force of nature at e-board, on media, on Twitter. She was fighting everybody all the time. And it was awesome to see her take on gig billionaires on their home turf on social media. And she just kept punching them in the face and they took it and they won, right? But apparently they're just not satisfied being punched in the face. They want to get punched in the face again. So now we got a prop that Assemblywoman Gonzalez is going to talk about. And I just really appreciate you getting up every day and taking on those jokers who have all the money, but none of the sense and think they can get away with wage theft in our state. That's just not going to happen. So here we go.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, did we just lose her? She was here?
Uh-oh.
Okay, she's coming back. She's coming back.
I'm here. Can you? There we are. Can you see me?
There we go.
There we go. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the chance to come and speak. That was a great panel on housing. I'm completely supportive of the initiative. And I like the speaker who said we need to elect more progressive. Trust me, as a progressive in the legislature, I'm there with you. We do need to elect more progressives. And I saw one of my progressive friends, Laura Friedman, was on as well. But this is about Prop 22. And let me tell you what happened. After we battled for years, almost a decade, these gig economy apps to say, no, you have to treat workers correctly. They lost in the courts, they lost in the legislature, they even lost with our governor. And then they said, okay, we will put in $110 million to put this on the ballot. So $110 million in order to exempt themselves from basic labor protections. And when I mean basic labor protections, I mean basic labor protections. They want to exempt themselves from the minimum wage. Their proposal, although they say somehow they do some it's not even new math, some funny math, and they say, we're gonna pay more than minimum wage. No, according to UC Berkeley and a study put out by the Labor Center there, their proposal would mean that the wage floor for drivers would be $5.64 an hour. That's what they're proposing in this initiative. They would not have to pay paid sick days. They would never have to pay into their workers' Social Security. They would never have to pay into unemployment insurance. They would not have no medical care, of course. And so we have this battle that is just so typical. It's David and Goliath. We're not going to raise $110 million, even with labor behind us, even with the people who care about us. There's no way we're going to match their money. But this is whether we put people before profits. I'm proud to say we have over 100 Democratic leaders so far that are no on Prop 22, but we need the grassroots support. We need people out there telling their friends and neighbors, do not let Uber and Lyft buy their way out of basic labor protections. That's what this is. And if that becomes public, every time they enter the stock market, you have people becoming billionaires with a B. They're founders, they're CEOs, they're CFOs. They're buying, $75 million mansions. And meanwhile, their drivers, some of them are living in their cars. When we're talking about a housing crisis, yeah, there's a housing crisis when you don't pay your workers minimum wage. This has gotten so out of control. And if they win this, I'm telling you, every one of our jobs that is currently done, they're trying to do that. And if we allow them to do it with delivery drivers, they're going to exempt all of our jobs out of basic labor protections, including the right to organize into a union. So it's never been more important to fight back. These are neoliberals who absolutely pretend, they dress themselves up. And as, we're for Black Lives Matter. No, you're not. You're not for your Black Lives Mattering workers who, by the way, their drivers are over 78% people of color. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll fight with me. It's going to be a good fight, but I need some troops. And so that's why I'm here to ask for that.
Oh my gosh, Assemblymember Gonzalez, I just love having you here. I love your energy. I wish we had more time. Next time we got to get you on the calendar for a longer discussion. But we're going to go now to Gina Harris, who's going to give us an update on the DNC. Thank you so much, Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey everyone, and thank you, Assemblymember Gonzalez. That was extremely powerful. The root of all evil is a neoliberal Democrat. I'm going to call it like it is. Anyway, so DNC updates. Amr, you kind of took the wind out of my sails. You gave up the big updates. So as you guys know, we pushed for equal representation here in California when it came to our chairs. Like, usually, traditionally, the chair just gets thrown to the governor, which I have no issues, against Gavin, but I feel like we could be a little bit more, we want to have stronger progressive voice represented. So, we started, a campaign through Roots Action for Ro Khanna, because, we like Ro Khanna, we like Barbara Lee, and so we pushed for that and we got heard. And I'm glad that, Gavin was open to that discussion and was willing to kind of step aside. And with the current pandemic and as a nurse, I'm actually glad that he's able to put his sole focus on that and not have to worry about us little DNC delegates going to poke at him every 2 seconds with a complaint. So, that was one major accomplishment. And then secondly, we also started a petition to, the nominee Biden about our vice presidential picks. We want our voice to be heard on who you pick for vice president. And so we sent him, through a democratic process, we voted on this, who we thought, would be good representation for a vice president pick. So we chose, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Nina Turner, and Barbara Lee. Those were our ones. And I'm like, you know what? A strong Black woman needs to be in that White House right about now, because it's going to take a strong Black woman to fix what's been going on the last 4 years. And if it can't be me, I'm happy with it being one of those three, especially my Congresswoman, Karen Bass, who's been really fighting the good fight, but then unapologetic Black woman like Nina Turner. Yes, Lord, and with these hands, she will fix this country. So moving on past that, the platform. All the delegates, like this has been we're a very kind of a theory and educated, like we're an issues-based delegation. Like we're not about the celebration. We're not about just the party. Our country is suffering. Like we are in just complete turmoil. If you let me label it, I'm going to say we're a failed nation right now. And so we recognize that. So we're pushing issues. And I was very happy to work on the systemic racism platform, Planck suggestion we sent. That was literally a doctoral thesis. We broke it down to almost 13 pages. And I think people who helped write this, like Haniye and people who helped write this are on this call right now. But I think it was about 13 pages where we broke down systemic racism into different planks. So we took systemic racism, the plank of it, and literally broke it down into its subsequent planks, because systemic racism is like Hydra in this country. You cut off one head, more heads keep growing because it is woven into the American flag. So you have to rip apart the flag, not to sound all like bad about the flag, but you have to rip apart the flag to rip apart systemic racism. And I think that's what we really tried to do in this systemic racism plank. And if only 5 sentences of that suggestion get actually put in the platform, I'm happy, because I know those 5 sentences are very powerful, because that whole thing was powerful. And I'm just pushing along. The virtual convention's going to suck. We can't be the troublemakers that we were in 2016. That sucks. But nonetheless, this convention, we know what it is. It is a nomination ceremony. This is Biden's thing. This is a time for Democrats to wave flags and say, yay, we're Democrats. But we're going to use our voice virtually as much as we can, hashtags, whatever, to make sure that the issues never leave the main stage. This is not a celebration. This is for sure about issues. We have a big problem here. Trump is just he's just the disease that is exacerbated. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. We're worried about fixing the issues that are going to help us all. Lastly, I just want to.
Can we wrap up real quick?
Yeah, no, I'm done with. I'm just going to tell. If you guys go to stories.demconvention.com, you guys can actually make videos for the convention, and it's open to the public. So please go put videos out there. They need to hear from the progressive side. I'm done. Thank you so much for giving me this time. It was great talking to you guys.
Thank you, Gina. We are going to move straight to Regina Banks, who is a candidate out in Elk Grove. And one of the reasons we're having her on is that we always want to have local candidates who are building the bench. So we got about 6-7 minutes for 2 candidates. Regina, take it away.
Yes, thank you so much, Amr. Thank you so much to the Progressive Caucus. This whole meeting has given me so much life. My name is Regina Banks, and I'm a candidate for school board this November in South Sacramento County. Elk Grove Unified is the largest school district in Northern California, and if elected, I'd be the first Black woman to serve. As Democrats, and particularly as progressives, we know that this election is definitely do or die, and for some of us in some of our communities, that means literally. For the past 14 years, I've worked as a policy analyst and advocate. I'm the director of the Lutheran Office of Public Policy, California, where I'm able to advocate for the end of child poverty, housing, equity, immigration reform. So when I saw this hellscape that is the coronavirus pandemic unfolding and the need for distance learning intersect with potential budget cuts, I was concerned for my community. Then amidst the uprising in support for Black Lives Matter, I recognized schools would need to contend with their relationship with school resource officers and close an ever-widening achievement gap. It was then that I knew that it was time to stop my flirtation with party politics and put myself forward. So I know that we are running late, and I want to get us out on time as much as anyone. So if you have any questions or concerns about what my ideals or progressive ideas are for Elk Grove Unified or for the whole of my community, please join us at reginafortrustee.com. I am very new to this, so I'm going to need all the help I can get. So if you go to reginafortrustee.com, we can definitely use your support and your help. So thank you.
I'm going to keep you on video for just a moment, Regina, and then we're going to squeeze a couple extra minutes out of the CDP. But I just want everybody to know that Regina and I were together in the ADEM slates, and we took on, our own assembly member to pull the endorsement. And she is just, no fear, even starting out. And I just love her to death. So please, if you can give her some love, I'd appreciate it. She's awesome. We need her elected. Devin, take it away. Introduce yourself. It's all you for the next few minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Amara. This is an absolutely incredible meeting. For folks who don't know, my name is Devin Murphy. I'm a candidate running for Pinole City Council. You all saw Javanka Beckles earlier. She is running for AC Transit Board around in my area. So we're all the Bay Area squad here. But really, I wanted to say a few words just before we leave to really ground us in this moment. I know we're leaving this meeting and, folks are still wondering what next. And I think that's an important question. First and foremost, today is Emmett Till's birthday. For those of you who don't know Emmett Till, he's a 14-year-old boy who lost his life due to lynching because he was falsely accused of, at the time, touching a white woman. That woman is still alive today, and she says, of course, that she never said that, but the reality is we know many Emmett Tills and Tamir Rice's, right? And so it's really important that as we think about Black lives and the fight that we have, so many folks said it before us, that we think about how our young Black people are impacted by this moment. Moreover, when I think about my candidacy for Pinole City Council, as a Black and queer candidate, I think about the shoulders of giants that I really stand on. That includes the trans women, so many Black trans women that we've lost. Their names are Mary Mack, right? Their names are Brayla Stone. Their names are Dominic Fell. Their names are Rhea Milton, right? Even Black trans man, Tony McDade out of Florida, right? This is so, so important. Not because of Democrats, not because of politics. This is important because of humanity. And so as progressives, and I know I'm talking to my family here when I say this, we must be unapologetic about the way in which we come to this table. It is so important the work that we are doing to challenge the party to not take law enforcement money. It is so important what we're doing to fight for a Green New Deal. It is so important what we're doing to make sure that every single human being in this country has adequate quality health care. And it should be free, because living in this country at this point has been a cost to so many of our mental health, right? And so at this point, we are in a moment where, yes, you're looking behind me at Devin Murphy for Pinole City Council, but we're in a moment where this is life or death for our country and certainly for each other. And so I'm telling these truths mostly because I love each and every one of you, and I love the power that we are building together as progressives within this party. But I'm telling these truths as we adjourn this meeting to ensure that our fight is beyond, right, what's in front of us beyond this weekend. Our fight is really in the trenches. I'm a candidate who's not taking any COP money. I'm a candidate who's not taking any oil money. I'm a corporate-free candidate. And again, I'm running for Pinole City Council because I believe that we do have a bright future. Some of the folks on this call also know me from my work in the California Young Democrats. And I'm really proud of Will Rodriguez Kennedy for his work in leading so many progressive efforts and leading our young people and young Democrats the way we actually should be led, which is through the progressive vision. Most of our mentors, including the late John Lewis, he was a young Black person, and he started his work in organizing as a young person. And so it's important for us to also center young people in this, in what we're doing right here, right now. And Amara, I'm so thankful for you as chair for really reaching out and being such a support for so many young Democrats, including myself. I want to close out by just again reminding us around the moment that we're in. When we say Black Lives Matter, we are talking about racism, institutional racism. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about maternal health. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about our environment. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about our prisons. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about our health and hygiene. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're talking about when someone walks into a doctor's office feeling comfortable being themselves. And it's incredibly important that we remember this. I'm really running again, Pinole City Council. I believe in my city, but I'm hoping that I'm one of many Black candidates and non-Black candidates who fights for many of the things Gina said, right? Green New Deal, Medicare for all, and certainly to make sure our lives matter. So again, I'm so thankful to be here. I'm so thankful to be in community, even though we can't be in person. It is a little strange because I love hugging people and saying hi. But
all right. Thank you so much, Devin. We have a hard stop in 2 minutes. The CDP is going to kick us out of this joint. So I appreciate you so much for the words and the depth of your spirit. And I wish you all the best. And I hope folks can support you. Everybody who joined us today, I know we went gangbusters and we just went speaker after speaker, but I think we need to do this again without an e-board. This has been a great night. And I want to thank everybody that joined us, my great officers who just work so hard and then hardly get any time to say the things they want because they're not me, us, and they put other people first. So thank you to our CDP staff who made all this possible, Nick and Karen. Please, everyone, be safe tonight and be safe as you leave us. Take care.